Hello. Okay, a movie that I've really been looking forward to checking out this year, and that is Longlegs, a horror thriller written and directed by Osgood Perkins, who also happens to be the son of Anthony Perkins, the man who played Norman Bates in Psycho. You know, how apt is that? The son of Anthony Perkins directing this movie Longlegs. So yeah, we're really looking forward to checking it out. I haven't watched anything else that Osgood Perkins has directed. This is my first experience of watching one of his movies. So we've got Longlegs, a film that follows an FBI agent tasked with tracking down an occultist serial killer whom she realizes she has a personal connection to. So visually, I absolutely adored this movie. From sort of the colour palette, the lighting, you know, the cinematography, it's got this kind of grittiness to it that, like, every scene has this kind of sense of dread about it. Like, you're sort of almost like you're within this nightmare. And it in many ways, it was very reminiscent of a David Fincher movie. A lot of people are comparing this film to Seven, and I get it. From sort of a cinematography perspective and just sort of the lighting and the colours, it does have that David Fincher look about it, and I can understand why a lot of people are comparing it to Silence of the Lambs. It has that grittiness to it and that kind of the dirtiness, you know, of what it is that's going on with this story and just how the world is brought to life through the visuals. And so yes, I understand those comparisons. At the same time, it's also its very own thing. It's its own entity. And what I felt like they have done here is taken a film like Silence of the Lambs or Seven and thrown a dash of supernatural horror into it. And you've got Longlegs. And I felt like they did a really good job with the story at blending that supernatural element along with the psychological element. And it's through the writing, it's through the performances and how the world is brought to life technically is what keeps this movie, it's what keeps this story grounded. I was never once thrown out of this movie. I always remained locked in, no matter how absurd that supernatural element of the story got. It was just how it was handled through the writing and how it was weaved in to the narrative that always kept me, you know, I was always remained locked into the story. It always felt real, like it was something that could exist, and it's just how it was sort of weaved in to that kind of psychological element of the story that really allowed it to work for me. At the same time, it was so effective at getting under the skin. This was quite a creepy movie. It was a very unnerving and settling experience, and a lot of it is achieved visually, for just how they would use the camera in certain moments and how they would focus on our characters going through this experience in this nightmare, to sort of how they would position a camera, to sort of the detail that they would include within certain moments, within certain frames of this film was just so well done. There are a couple of moments that it took me a while to really notice certain things appear within certain moments, and it was so creepy that it gave me chills, because they just did it in a way that you've kind of seen it before, but I felt like it was done in a way here which was a hell of a lot more effective, and as a result kind of really elevated the horror and just really helped get under the skin. And again, it's all done from a technical perspective when it comes to the lighting and sort of the cinematography and just the mood that's created throughout this film. Like, there is that kind of sense of dread right through this film. It's very sort of anxiety inducing, or it's also got this kind of tension that builds from the very first moment of this film. The entire experience has this otherworldly vibe about it, but it always remains grounded. It always feels very real and gritty. But what sort of really kind of adds to that otherworldly vibe is Nicolas Cage as Longlegs. And through his performance to his appearance within this film, sort of really kind of adds to that otherworldly kind of vibe that I was getting throughout this experience. But his performance, Nicolas Cage's performance in this movie was phenomenal. Like, it's superb. He was... The way in which he brought this character to life, it was unnerving, it was unpredictable, and it was never too absurd. Like, it's very Nicolas Cage, and I just, obviously I'm a big fan of Nicolas Cage, but it was never too much. He was reining it in at the very right moment. Like, there are moments in this movie where he just goes absolutely bonkers, but it's like, it's very measured. And he knows when to pull it in. And I just felt like his performance could have easily have gone too far. But he never crosses the line. It's never too absurd or it's never too silly. And it's sort of really he does a really good job at sort of really keeping himself really under control. Because there are moments in this film that he goes very Nicolas Cage. But like I said, it's a very measured performance, and I absolutely loved what he did with it, and it all sort of helps add to the horror and that kind of uneasiness of the overall experience, and that sort of that kind of sense of dread. It's all elevated in part because of Nicolas Cage's performance within this movie. He is superb, and this is one moment right at the end. I'm not going to say anything because it's spoiler free, but it was great. Maika Monroe as FBI agent Lee Harker, who's assigned to the Longlegs case. She's also fantastic here. She gives us this very kind of grounded and real performance. One that really allows us to get emotionally wrapped up into a story and sort of just believe in the character. It's all done through how she brings the character to life. We're sort of very kind of through the nuanced details with her expressions and just how she holds herself. I really liked what she did with this character. And the same goes for Blair Underwood, who plays Agent Carter, Lee's superior. He is also fantastic here. And it's through his character that we get a hint of this kind of very dark and twisted humour that's running throughout the movie. It's there, it's very faint. It's really not that obvious, and you can only really kind of pick up on it in sort of kind of the briefest of moments. But when you do get it, it kind of like... It made me chuckle, but in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. And it's just done through how they bring these characters to life. Blair Underwood, I haven't heard many people speak or talk about Blair Underwood's performance here. And I think it really needs to be shouted out about, because he is... Just like the other actors and actresses within this movie, he is simply superb. And we've also got a great score by Elvis Perkins, the brother of Osgood Perkins. It's one of those scores that kind of really helps elevate the horror, sort of really aids getting under the skin, and it just sort of helps amplify that very sort of dark, moody, dread-inducing atmosphere. It's all aided by the fantastic score here by Elvis Perkins. And so a lot of people have been referring to this film as being one of the scariest movies made, in the last 10 years. But for me personally, it's like, well, define scary. I think there's different variations of something being scary. And for me, this was definitely one of those movies that when it comes to sort of making you feel uneasy and settled, and even in moments disturbed, and just sort of one of those films that kind of, gives you chills, then it does it beautifully. Like throughout this experience, you've got that sense of dread and anxiety and tension, and it does a really good job again under the skin. So it kind of really sort of depends on what you would regard as being scary. There's a lot of blood, there is violence, it's gory in places, but it's also very brief. And it's not scary, I feel like, because of that aspect of the story. It's scary due to the psychological element, and that's sort of how that supernatural element kind of works its way into that part of the story that kind of really allows this to be effective when it comes to the horror. So yeah, enough rambling on from me. I highly recommend Longlegs. Please go out and check it out at the cinema. I really, really enjoyed it, and I feel like it does exactly what it needs to, and it does something very smart with sort of what it's trying to do with the story. I get why people are comparing this to Silence of the Lambs and Seven, but it is its own thing. It's its own entity, and I really liked what they did with it, and Nicolas Cage in this movie is superb. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Longlegs, and I will be giving Longlegs an 8 out of 10. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Longlegs. But have any of you guys checked it out yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below. And let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews, I'm just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for In a Violent Nature, another horror movie that I've really been looking forward to checking out. And then you've also got Twisters, the sequel to Twister, which I believe was released in '97. I think. I remember Twister coming out, and I remember really enjoying it, but I haven't seen it in years. So I'm hoping to revisit the first movie before checking out Twisters in the cinema over the weekend. But they will be my next 2 movie reviews. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and again, thank you for the most recent subscribers, and for everyone that subscribed over the last couple of years. It means an awful lot to me. I'm hoping to hit 500 by the end of the year. So yeah, thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.